Fios Morgui, Misha Brina Hart le Hrave Vichali Honel in Portland, Oregon, Ta Ahisaram Ave Grinch and Stide Holtish Lo Lahai FleadhFest Fiche Hien. You're all very welcome to the West region of the North American province of Comhaltas Units. I'm Brianna Hart, chair of the Michael O'Donnell branch of Comhaltas in Oregon. And as part of FleadhFest 2021, virtual Fleadh Cheoil, I'm delighted to share the history of Comhaltas in the western region of the United States. The West region is the most geographically dispersed of the North American provinces, with branches along the Pacific coast. From Puget Sound in the far northwest corner of the United States, just a stone's throw from Canada, to San Diego, right on the border with our southern neighbor Mexico. And let us not forget to mention the two branches in the desert southwest. For many years, the Cooley-Keegan branch of Comhaltas in San Francisco, founded in 1984, was the only branch on the West Coast. It's still the largest with the most members and the busiest calendar. The branch also has the distinction of having twice hosted the North American Convention, with a third convention planned in 2022. So let's start by hearing the story of Comhaltas in San Francisco.
The history of Comhaltas Cultúirí Éireann in the San Francisco Bay Area is a rich and vibrant one. The story of those who brought our branch to fruition and fostered it reflects the love of Irish immigrants and their descendants for the homeland of Ireland and its culture. Our traditions are steeped in music, song, dance, language, and storytelling, and sharing these in our community. Those mentioned in our story here are representatives of the multitude of volunteers over the years who have worked to keep the Irish traditions alive. They are keepers of the faith. While we are unable to include here each member and supporter over the years, we are truly grateful to each one for bringing us to this time.
The Irish have had a very, very big impact on the city and county of San Francisco, going back to the time of the gold rush. Even before the gold rush, we had people of Irish extraction and people from the old country, Ireland, in San Francisco. For instance, a man by the name of Sam Brannan, after whom a street in San Francisco is named, he came into the city around 1848 or 49. Sam came in and brought 200 people with him, and when he did that, he doubled the size of the little village, which was at that time called Yerba Buena. San Francisco was called Yerba Buena. Anyway, he set up the city and was very, very involved politically, set up the first newspaper. Sam Brannan was also very instrumental in spreading the word about the gold rush to the people of San Francisco. He had opened a mine up in the gold country, and when he found gold, he came down to the city and said, "Gold, gold, gold" on the American River, which started the gold rush in California of 1849.
Again, it's just so hard to believe and understand why from a small little island like Ireland, and those years, maybe 3 million, 4 million people, and came all the way out here, how they got here and so forth, and then had such an impact on the government and the life of California.
Our monthly newsletter is called Scéal Ella, meaning another story in Irish. We salute all the editors of Scéal Ella with a special nod to our current editor, Tim Sullivan, who keeps the flag flying. We continue now with our story of our own Irish community in the San Francisco Bay Area. It begins with Anne and Tom Quilter, who helped to revive the Owen O'Grony branch of the Gaelic League in around 1950. In the years following, they helped to organise a Feshanna for the Gaelic League, and Anne worked with Catherine Newell and Bridie Riley to bring Comhaltas to San Francisco.
Growing up, we used to have music after the 12:15 Mass on Sunday at my mother's house, and that was my first introduction to Irish music. My mother would be on the piano, my dad would be Jim Cotter, and my mother was Agnes Cotter. Some of the musicians that would play were Sean O'Neill, Tommy Mallon, Dick Cotter, Bill Cotter and his wife Noreen. Bill Nyland would be on the violin. Pat O'Neill would be on the Uilleann pipes. We would basically have a session anywhere from 2 o'clock till dinner time. The early cultists, besides dancing, they would have an occasional sing-song. They would also have, every once in a while, somebody would just get up and recite a poem. It wasn't just dancers. Like the old feshers, Mr. and Mrs. Quilter, he was from Kerry and she was from Cork. When they had their fesh, it was not just dancers. They had Gaelic speaking, fiddle competitions, the pipe competitions, as well as the accordions and the melodeons. Again, they had poetry, singing competitions. I do play occasionally with my son, Michael. I am now teaching one of my granddaughters, Katie Kell. She's starting with the whistles, so she's starting to join the fife and drum band. I'm teaching her sister, Charlotte, is learning the fiddle, and I'm teaching another grandchild, Saoirse Keaveney, the whistle.
In the early 1970s, Catherine Newell, an accomplished Irish dancer in San Francisco, and Bill McAvoy, the first chairman of the North American province of the CCE, teamed up to bring Comhaltas to the West Coast. Both were great ambassadors for the traditions of Ireland. Bill always had a special gra for the San Francisco branch, and Bill made many trips to San Francisco, sometimes accompanying Comhaltas Director General Lauris O'Murchu, who was also a great mentor over the years to us. In March 1975, the United Irish Cultural Centre, the first Irish social centre in the United States, built entirely by volunteer labour and community contributions, proudly opened its doors. A Comhaltas concert was one of the first groups that entertained a full house thanks to Bill's support and the work of Catherine, Mary Cullity and their committee. Comhaltas became a club within the United Irish Cultural Centre and held céilís, concerts and sessions which were the front runner of our activities today.
Growing up, there was always Irish music in the house. We would often have the musicians over at our house. Joe Cooley, Kevin Keegan, Richard and Melissa Lundy, Joe Maureen Murtha, Alan Patterson. There was quite a few of them used to come down on a Sunday afternoon before they would go off to do a Sunday evening gig. As we grew up and it got older, where to go on a Sunday evening, it transitioned out to the Irish Cultural Centre. There was an organization at the time, Comhaltas Kiltóry Éireann, under the auspices of the Irish Cultural Centre. My mom, Bridie Riley, stepped in and she began to recruit the young crowd, as we were called. As Mom got it going, there was turns to incorporate. Steve and Brendan Keneally were very instrumental working with that, with Chris McCarthy and my mom. The branch was up and running again. It took off with Mom's guidance, and people kept joining in. Eventually, there was bands that was even formed out of it. Romances even blossomed out of the Comhaltas.
I was friends with these folks, but not through Comhaltas. And they were telling me about, there's this club that meets out at the United Irish Cultural Centre on Sunday nights, you should come. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of young people at this thing. It came time for the club elections. The late great Pat Dillon got up there and said, like, you young folks, you should get involved and run for these offices. We did. We nominated a person for each position. Of course, we all voted for our friends, and we win. The next month, nobody else showed up but us. So I think all the old folks thought we were going to ruin it or something. And that's when Bridget Riley came to the rescue. She became our mentor. We built the club up. Then Lauris O'Murchu and Dermot O'Coin came out and said, but you're not really an independent official branch of Comhaltas, you're a club of the Irish Centre. So J.J. Whelan came in. So J.J. and Bridget Riley, we put together bylaws, and they drove up to Sacramento and got us registered, and we became an independent official branch, Comhaltas Kiltóry Éireann, Cooley Keegan. I think that Joe Cooley and Kevin Keegan were really chosen by Bridget Riley. She suggested them to us. And
Mom picked those names because there was a tie-in personally with the family. They were neighbors beside each other. When Joe came out to San Francisco, they renewed their friendship, and Kevin came along and was often playing with Joe.
In 1983, we decided to have a parade float. We built that float and we entered the Oakland. We won a prize for that. We never went back. But we have done the St. Patrick's Day Parade in San Francisco every year since. And we've been on the front page of the paper numerous times. And we had built a little cottage with a thatched roof, and the musicians would be in that so they would be protected from the weather, because you never knew what the weather was going to be. One night we're at the Irish Center having a branch meeting, and Bridget Riley says, "There's Joni Scanlon over there. You should go ask her if she wants to come and join us." That was one of the greatest things that ever happened, having Joni come and get active in Comhaltas.
The music, the dancing, it's all continued on. The next generation of quote-unquote youngsters is coming along. I know Melissa Lundy was teaching music lessons to all of us, and she would have 6 to 8 of us. We all started on tin whistles. Some of us graduated onto other instruments. But one of the younger generations coming up now is Sean O'Donnell. And Sean also had lessons from Melissa. It's really nice to see the traditions continuing on with, per se, the next generation, now that Steve and us are that older.
Now we're the older generation.
Yes.
So other things we did was we raised money to put on concerts.
Yes.
So our first big concert fundraiser, we had Des Regan's band.
And that got us a return trip down to Los Angeles.
So then we went down to his bar. We rented 2 vans and went down in vans. And we had Father Seamus with us, and we had Mass at a rest stop on I-5, like in the middle of nowhere. That was fun. So we went down there and put on a Kaylee to help Des kickstart his own branch down there. After that, we started getting the Comhaltas tours. All these musicians come out from Ireland, and we get to take them to the wine country. And we took them to Alcatraz in the rain.
Yes. But it was a lot of fun, and it kept the culture alive. And that was what was most important to my parents, and it's important, I believe, for us passing it on to our kids.
Yeah, Bridget Riley also insisted that we go to the first North American convention, I think it was 1983, in Toronto, so we could learn what the other Comhaltas branches were like and what they were doing. And his brother Mike and myself, Tim Reedy, our accordion player, who was another great mentor for us, and put up with a lot of shenanigans from the youngsters.
He had the patience for it.
He had the patience for it. Tim was a great guy. We met the great Eamon O'Loughlin and Henry Garrity and Helen Gannon and a few others, but they stick out as making that a great trip for us. And then it became like a habit to go to the conventions all over the place.
Yep.
If we didn't have enough people to do a 16-hand reel here, we did at the convention. So when we were in Toronto, Bridget Riley got this idea that we're going to do this, we can do this. And so we proposed that we host a convention, and we got the convention awarded to us, and it was really a lot of fun. That got everyone else here hooked on conventions, and traveling to the conventions became a regular thing for the San Francisco crowd. One of the best ones I ever went to was when we went to St. Louis. Best dancing, probably the best dancing one I was ever at.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun. Mom used to enjoy going, and when she'd come back, she'd be on a natural high. They were good. They were a great tool for recruiting and getting the younger people involved. We all ended up pitching in, organizing, getting different tasks and assignments. That was the different involvement that we all had. We all played a part in doing these shows.
And the branch really grew, and new people came in, and different types of people. It wasn't just like the Irish American or Irish. We attracted a lot of different types of people. Yeah,
It's a very
and they
wide
stepped up
spectrum.
and became very involved and took on a lot of the projects we did.
That's the one great thing. It's a lot of volunteers, and they've all stepped forward.
I think it's a sign of a very healthy branch when all kinds of outsiders can just show up, join the group, and volunteer, and the group just goes through all these different strengths and motions, and yet carries on its traditions like the parade float.
But it's going around and supporting other venues. It's like today, Comhaltas, well, pre-pandemic, was going over to the Plow and the Stars, and they were having lessons at the center, and they were spreading it out so that other businesses were getting involved. And like Steve says, it wasn't exclusively limited just to the Irish or the Irish Americans. It was expanding its roots. and spreading the word around and getting more volunteers. Back in the early 70s, I was competing in Irish dancing and qualified to compete for the 1975 Easter World Championships at the Mansion House in Dublin. My mom, trying to calm my nerves before the competitions, sat down and wrote this poem. I'll dance tonight with joy in my heart. I'll dance and I'll dance with all of my heart. And from heaven above, may my friend take part. My friend Joe Cooley will be doing his part. We're gathered tonight from countries near and far to compete in the World Irish Dancing Championships and find the stars. They tell us we get just 48 bars, so it won't be easy to rate amongst the stars. Now I must go and take my place there, so root for me, Joe, root for me up there. We started a fire deep down in my heart, a love for old Ireland that stands set apart. Tonight when I lay down on my pillow to rest, I sure hope a fine trophy shines bright in my chest. And if by chance I don't win it all, I'll remember the honor and forget the fall. Your music I hear in my dreams at night, and picture you above by God's fireside. One day in heaven I hope we'll meet, for to see you again will be such a treat.
Joe Cooley of Peterswell, County Galway, was a founding member of the Tulla Ceilidh Band. He came to San Francisco in the 1970s and was joined by Kevin Keegan from Ballinasloe, County Galway, a fellow accordion player and a member of the Ockram Slopes Ceilidh Band. Joe Cooley and Kevin Keegan had a major influence on traditional Irish music in San Francisco and are remembered fondly there by those dancers and musicians who came to share in and benefit from the gift of their music. When the Comhaltas branch was established, Bridie Riley suggested naming the branch the Cooley-Keegan branch, and it was readily accepted by the membership. This famous recording session was arranged for Joe Cooley by Tom McMahon at FleadhFest Bar in County Galway. Joe died less than a month later in Dublin on December 20th, 1973. The branch has a robust music and language scholarship program for our youth thanks to the generosity of our sponsors. We are very fortunate that several of our musicians and teachers step forward as instructors. Bruce Culbertson, Christina Groneman, Lou Milligan, Kerry Garfield, Cormac Gannon, Pat O'Donnell and Gavin Bruce are but a few who travelled miles to the United Irish Cultural Centre because of their dedication. Children's music, dance and Irish language workshops over the years have been mainly organised by Maureen Murphy and Josephine Brogan. An average of 22 children ranging in the ages from 5 to 12 attend. These workshops were made possible with the promotion and outreach grant received from the Consulate General of Ireland in San Francisco. We are very lucky to have many talented musicians and dance teachers in the Bay Area who helped us with these workshops.
I was a music teacher and youth officer with the Cooley-Keegan branch of Comhaltas Units in San Francisco from 2011 to 2014. It was Josephine Brogan that got me roped in the first place, and I went along to an event that Comhaltas was holding. I think it was a Ceilidh, and there were a lot of the families and children at the event, and everyone got to try out a tin whistle, and we roped in 4 or 5 young people to join the first class, and we started off with that, and they were great, very enthusiastic, and I can honestly say it was the most enjoyable and rewarding work that I've ever done, teaching those kids. And we started off with that one class the first year, and then we built from there, adding a second class the second year and a third one the third year, and also a class for adult beginners on the tin whistle. So it was lots of fun, and getting to see the kids progressing week by week and learning a new bit of a tune, learning to better hold the instrument and play with one another. It was a very, very fun experience. And as youth officer, I used to help organise kind of a monthly get together in the bar of the United Irish Cultural Centre for Comhaltas music students, and we would get together with some musicians who'd been playing in the Bay Area for a long number of years and were very well respected and great fun, and they were always really good and very encouraging to the young students. And it was kind of one of these fun, casual, no pressure Sunday afternoon type of things, and your family could come along, and then the young people were always very happy to get the chance to play their couple of tunes and do well. And then Josephine and some of the other set dancers might get up and give us a set as well, and it was kind of magic to see the light bulb moment for all the kids looking at this music being played, and that driving the dancers and them making their own thing of it, and everybody having a very good time. So I think it was an important aspect of learning the music, that the music sits into a whole broad and very, very old and fantastic tradition of our culture and song and dance and language and the whole lot of it. So I just want to say thank you to everybody in the Fleadh Cheoil branch for making me so welcome and roping me into it. And I really, really enjoyed getting to know all the students and all the families in the Irish community there. And I don't know if any of them are still playing tin whistle, but I'm sure that whatever they're at, they're making a good job of it anyway. It was a great bunch of kids, and I imagine they're all young adults now, so wishing them all the best, and hope to see you all again in San Francisco sometime soon.
Melissa Lundy was a legend in Irish music, both in her native Ireland and in the San Francisco Bay Area. She was generous with her talents and was a mentor to young Sean O'Donnell. Melissa and her Live Oak Ceilidh band provided the music for our 1998 San Francisco North American Convention banquet, and the band included her husband Rich Lundy, Lou Milligan, John Sweeney, Barbara Southworth, and Sean McEvany.
Melissa Lundy was one of the founders of the Fleadh Cheoil branch of Comhaltas in San Francisco. Melissa had emigrated to the United States when she was 13, having been born on a farm outside Carrick in Shannon County, Leitrim. She was already an outstanding musician as a child and had won a number of gold medals on banjo and tin whistle. And when she emigrated here, she started playing with Joe Cooley in San Francisco. In any case, Bridie Riley, who was from Peterswell, County Galway, the same town as Joe, decided that we should start a branch of Comhaltas here. She enlisted Melissa to help her, and together the two of them got the ball rolling, and that's how it started.
Melissa was taken from us much too early, but her music lives on through her students, her family, Rich, Sarah, Suzanne, and Fiona, and her fellow musicians.